Sure.
Hello, Mr. Sweeney. Good, how are you?
I'm going to bring it up here. And,
Where's up here?
Good to see you. In front of the cameras.
Oh, okay. It is right there.
Once again, Dr.
Must have done something wrong there. They don't put,
No, just a few documents, that's all. No.
Chuck has all their stuff and I got nothing.
Nope. No, just there's most of it you've seen.
No problem.
Well, maybe at some point, I guess we'd have Jennifer.
I didn't know if it was.
What happened about a year ago was I would have stacks of stuff, and then when someone asked a question, by going through it, I couldn't find
That
it.
happens to me all the time.
I couldn't find exactly what I
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Ready? Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the Vernon Township Board of Education reorg meeting to order. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Annunziata?
Here.
Mr. Tilly?
Here.
Mrs. Coggan?
Here.
Mrs. Luker?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Ms. Pellet?
Here.
Mr. Sparta?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. I'd like to read in the official results of the November 3rd election. Justin Annunziata, 8,506 votes. Adina Luthner, 6,593 votes. Martin O'Donnell, 6,337. Michael Peak, 4,487. And there were 337 write-ins. I'd like to swear in Justin, Adina, and Martin at this time.
Watch the wires. Good.
This one mic.
Okay. Just talk louder.
Okay. So I'll swear you, I'll give you a sentence and then you repeat it, okay? So I state your name.
I, Justin Annunziata,
I'm Martin O'Donnell.
Okay.
I, Adina Luthner,
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
And I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I state your name.
I, Justin Annunziata,
I, Martin O'Donnell.
I, Adina Luthner,
Do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
Do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
for office of member of Board of the Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
and I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19:4-1.
pursuant to RS 1419-1,
No.
No.
RS 19:4-1,
RS 19:4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction of crime
nor disqualified due to conviction of crime
or offense listed in NJSA
or offense listed in NJSA
18A:12-1,
18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties that the office of this office
of the duties of the office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. And we have a statement for each one of you to sign, and then you can return it to me.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point of the reorganization meeting, I'd like to collect nominations for the office of board president.
I would like to nominate Justin Annunziata.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other nominations? Hearing none. I'd like to get a roll call vote for Justin Annunziata to be board president.
Mr. Tilly?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Annunziata, the meeting is yours.
Thank you.
Welcome back, President Nunziata. Normally I'd shake your hand, but under these circumstances I
Right.
can't, but welcome back,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for your support. Item F is nominations for Vice President of the Board of Education. Can we hear any nominations for Vice President at this time?
I'd like to nominate Kelly Mitchell.
Nomination for Kelly Mitchell by Ms. Coughlin. Do we hear any other nominations for Vice President? Hearing none, can we please have a roll call vote for Kelly Mitchell for Vice President?
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Yes. Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Tilly?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Kelly. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mitchell, I look forward to working with you. Congratulations.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Item G is public participation for items on the agenda only. Mr. Shea, do we have the public participation set up for the Zoom meeting? Okay. Okay. Do you have any hands raised for public comments at this time? No. Okay. We'll close it to the public. Item H is appointments. The first appointment is for the Sussex County School Boards Association. Traditionally, the last few years, I believe that Ms. Bucciari filled that role for the board. Her term expired in December. Are there any members interested in being our delegate for the Sussex County School Boards Association? Mr. Sweeney? Okay, great. Would anybody like to stand in as an alternate?
I can be the alternate.
Mr. Chili? Thank you. Okay, and New Jersey School Boards Association? Mr. Sweeney? Great. Is anybody else interested in the position? Okay, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. And the alternate? Mr. Chili, are you interested in
I can be
standing in?
alternate.
Thank you. And the legislative delegate, would you like to stand in for that as well, Mr. Sweeney? The following committee members will be determined: Finance, Partnership, Curriculum, Community Relations, Student Matters, Special Services, Liaison, Negotiations, Technology. That should be Curriculum and Technology, and then Buildings and Grounds and Policy.
Mr. Nunziata? Oh,
Yes.
I was going to ask the same question I think you are. Is it about Ed Services Commission, Mr.
Yes,
Coughlin?
Yeah.
I didn't know if because I volunteered last or if you needed it
Yes.
official today.
I just saw that.
Okay.
We do need to appoint a delegate to sit in on the Ed Services Commission. Ms. Coughlin, you were
Yeah.
interested in
I'm
filling that
interested in
role?
doing it.
Okay, great. And do we have somebody who would like to be an alternate?
I'll do that.
Okay. Jen. Thank you for doing that. Recommendations. Recommendation I1. It is recommended that the board adopt the attached code of ethics for board members. Do we have a motion?
Move.
Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Ms. Sparta,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney. Yes. Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Movement.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item J will be public participation for items on the agenda or any other business. After item J, we are going to add a closed session to the end of the executive session. To the end of the reorganization meeting because it is 6:10 and our work session is advertised to begin at 7. So we can't begin that meeting before 7 o'clock according to the Open Public Meetings Act. So if we go into executive at the end of this meeting, we can just eliminate the executive session at the beginning of the next meeting. Good. So after public participation, we'll immediately enter closed. Mr. Shea, do you have any hands raised for public participation? Okay. We'll give that 10 more seconds. Okay, seeing no public participation, we'll close it to the public. And item K1 will be an executive session. It's recommended that the board enter closed session for the purpose of discussing contractual matters. Do we have a motion?
Move.
Second, Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. All, I'm sorry? Yes, contractual and student matters. No action will be taken when we get out, and we will immediately adjourn and go into our work session. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are closed.
they're here. They think, I guess, that it's all a game. And that's the thing, Wolf. You know, all the people here, the folks that I've been speaking to here, they all just believe in this conspiracy theory taking over a not insignificant part of the American population. And we're being moved here a little bit again, Wolf. I think we should just move down the street here. You can see some police with shields been brought in here. And there's a sense, I think, in the next few moments that the police will try to push these Trump supporters further away from the Capitol. And of course, they've been here all day. They've been here from a few minutes after Trump finished speaking, that speech, which was
Hello?
Hey, why don't we
Hey,
just,
she just got the Zoom link.
oh,
She's
okay.
just sending you the link right now.
I was just gonna say, let's just do speakerphone. No, it's, I don't,
We were actually just saying that. But
yeah, okay.
Sorry, just got it.
All right, cool. Thanks. Sorry about this.
Return to open session.
Move.
Mr.
Second.
Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting?
Move.
Mr. Chili, second
Second.
by Mr. Sparta. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The reorg meeting is adjourned. I'd like to call the Wednesday, January 6th, Vernon Township Board of Education work session to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Annunziata,
Here.
Mr. Chili,
Here.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Here.
Mrs. Luthner,
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Here.
Mrs. Pellet,
Here.
Mr. Sparta,
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we please have a reading of the meeting notice?
Absolutely. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Ed has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting is properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law.
Thank you. Item 2 for closed session will be stricken from the agenda. Item 3 is open session. It is recommended that we're already in open session, so we don't need that. Item D, presentations. Educacious by Miss Melanie Smith.
Yes, I think Mr. Shea mentioned that Melanie, is she in the?
She is a panelist.
She's on the Zoom, she's on the panelist, Mr.
Yes.
Shea? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Melanie, before you begin, this is Karen Davino. How are you?
I'm great, Karen.
So just for the purposes of the board members, obviously I'll be quite succinct, but Mr. O'Donnell wasn't with us in December, neither was Ms. Luthner. My December superintendent's report talked about an international student program that I've been pursuing for the last couple of years. The most difficult thing to do is to get approval from the government. We were approved more than a year ago. The next step is really to speak to a company and decide if they would be able to work with us. And the purposes of tonight's presentation is that Dr. McKay and I vetted many companies. We did lots of interviews. Melanie Smith represents Educacious, which is one of the companies that works with international students. Purposes of tonight's presentation is for Ms. Smith to provide more information for the Board of Education. And then, of course, ask some questions, et cetera, and circle back, hopefully looking for an agreement with Educacious if we choose to move forward. So, Melanie, I think if that's okay, Mr. President, can she continue?
Yeah, please.
All right, so Melanie, the floor is yours.
Did she mute herself?
Melanie, can you hear us? Maybe when we went to screen sharing, there was something with the audio. Oh, she just signed off. Just bear with us while we wait for her to sign back in.
Mr. Shea, are you seeing her as an attendee or no longer?
No, she's not in there.
What happened?
We'll give her 10 more seconds, and if not, we can move on to the next agenda item and circle back.
Did you get her?
Great.
Karen, where are they?
Okay, I think I'm logged back in.
Thank you for joining us. Was the issue with the screen sharing? That seems to be what it. No? All right. Try that again. Okay. Can you hear us still, Melanie?
Yes, I can.
The floor is yours.
All right. So as Karen mentioned, I'm with Educatious International. Educatious International is an organization that recruits and screens international students for high schools in the United States that are approved by Homeland Security to issue an F1 visa or an I-20 for a student to get an F1 visa. These specific schools that are approved by Homeland Security have the ability to require the students to pay a tuition to the school in order for them to attend the school. And those are the students that we work with and strictly work with these F1 students that are looking to come to the United States and study for, some students are coming to stay for one year, which is all that is available for public schools. That is a federal law. But we do also have some students that come for multiple years and study at private schools as well. Next screen. As I mentioned, we are the global leader in F1 high school international student placement. Next screen. And Educatious International is part of Educatious Group. We are a group of 8 businesses, charitable and environmental organizations, and 30 offices. We're in 14 countries and 28 cities. The group is owned privately, so we're not beholden to any investors. Our founder and CEO brings over 40 years of experience in the international education industry. We've been bringing students to the United States for over 15 years, and I personally have been with the company going on 13 years. So I started off with the company when we were just kind of a small mom and pop shop, and we have grown substantially over the years. Next screen. We currently partner with about 100 boarding schools. We also partner with about 150 private day schools and 150 public high schools and districts within the United States, as well as 50 private and public high schools in Canada.
Melanie, do you need us to advance the screen? Should we start?
I think we lost her again.
Oh, no. What's that, Matt? It says she's still there. I wonder what's happening.
We'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds.
Melanie, are you there?
She's not.
Oh, she's not?
No.
Yeah, I can't see
Okay.
it, so.
Why don't we move on to item 2, the second presentation. Would you like to reschedule Ms. Smith to join us another evening?
If Ms. Smith can come back on, I would like to speak about it this evening if we can. Part of the reason
Okay.
is that I mentioned it in my report in December that We really should have looked at approving an agency in December, but I wanted to wait until we had new board members on. If the board hears the presentation, asks questions, have the opportunity for me to obtain a potential contract from an agreement from Educatius, I would recommend that be on the next item, on the next agenda, I'm sorry, on January 21st. So I really was hoping this would work out, but certainly if it doesn't work out,
Okay.
we can move it back. But Mr. Shea, I guess, would you mind keeping an eye out for Melanie?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to D2, which is Tom Tafuri of Brown and Brown Associates, or Brown and Brown Benefits Advisors.
Yes, Jim.
Mr. Tafuri, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear and see me?
Good.
Awesome. Should I just go ahead and get started?
Please.
Great. And thank you, everybody. Good evening. Hope everybody had a very happy new year. I'm happy to be here tonight. Today, we're going to go ahead and talk about the district and the potential move on the dental carrier from Horizon to Delta Dental, effective March 1, 2021. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if you don't mind. And obviously, feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. So what you're seeing here, and I apologize if it's a little tiny on your end. I tried to blow it up as best I can. These are the marketing results. So before we kind of dive in to the numbers, I wanted to give everybody some background as to why we're having this conversation in January. So last spring, after Brown & Brown was brought on board as the broker of record, we went out and marketed, obviously, your medical, your prescription, and your dental insurance. All of that renewed with Horizon on July 1, 2020. At that time, we negotiated some significant savings off of the whole package, medical, prescription, and dental. But the dental plan was running pretty hot, in excess of something called like a 90% loss ratio, which means that over 90% of the money coming in to Horizon was used to pay claims, leaving Horizon with very little dollars. They usually target around 82 to 85% from a loss ratio perspective. And Horizon looked at this as a whole package. So they gave us a lot of concession on the medical and the prescription to get that where it needed to be. But the dental got about a 14% or so increase, which was, it's small premium, but it's still a 14% increase. So at the time, I had discussed with Mr. Kepnes that we knew that the board was looking seriously at the SEHBP, and that if that were the case, we would relook at remarketing the dental at the appropriate time. And one of the reasons was the potential for Chapter 78 contributions to go away. So when you join the SEHBP for medical and prescription, you may not be, the employees may not be subject to Chapter 78. And obviously, that's not the case with Vernon, but we didn't know that at the time. So to hedge, if you will, our risk, I felt that we could, the second reason, get a very competitive proposal due to the drop in claims from COVID. So the COVID-19 pandemic saw dental claims come to a halt. And I figured that we would get some really competitive proposals from Aetna and or Delta. So Mr. Kepnes was on board, and at the appropriate time, once the district did the green light for SEHBP, we went off and kicked off the dental marketing, and these are the results. So the proposals here are from Aetna and from Delta, the same two carriers we went out to last spring. Aetna has a respectable offer on the table of 6% below, but it just doesn't cut it compared to Delta. From both a financial perspective, Delta is a stronger position financially, as well as the network, which we'll look at in just a couple of seconds. So Delta is proposing effective March 1 for 16 months, 16-month rate, to go 9.4% below the current Horizon rates which again saw about a 14 or so percent increase over 7/1/19. So 7/1/20, about a 14% increase. So not quite going back in time to the old rates, but getting there. When you were to factor in a small increase effective July 1 of 2021, so if the district didn't do anything and renewed with Horizon, I'm projecting about 3% increase on the Horizon premium effective 7/1/21. So if you were to look at that and say, well, if we had Delta on 3/1, it's about a 15% savings over the 16 months when you consider that Horizon rates are going to go up slightly. And this is not a hard number. This is just my projection based on where your claims are and Horizon and what they're doing right now with the market from a dental perspective. So financially, it obviously checks a really nice box there. When you look at for budget purposes, Delta is also guaranteeing that the next renewal, July 1 of 2022, will not increase more than 6%. So that gives the district roughly, 28 months. So a little over 2 years of financial security with a dental program, which is nice to have, and obviously in this climate. Before we talk about this option over here, just going to stop briefly and see if anyone has any questions, knowing that I'm going to talk a little bit about the network. This is just more of a financial end of it.
Hey, Tom, I just have one question. I would imagine that the loss rate we're running at now would be much less because of the COVID situation that you mentioned, but you're still expecting an increase from Horizon? Is that, I would,
yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. So the loss ratio did go down to high 70s. I believe it's like 78, maybe even 80%. So not, we've seen other districts drop into the 50s and 60s. So even though Vernon did see a dip in claim activity, there was still that claim activity leading up to. So you had claim activity for January and for February, which was normal and hot. Horizon was still collecting the normal premium. That increase didn't come into play until 7/1 of 20. And the experience period is going to be January 1 through December of 20. And yeah, you're running at, close to 80%, but it wasn't a tremendous drop off from Horizon's perspective. The way Delta's looking at it is Delta sees your claims dropped off, and as a new carrier, they don't have to worry about any claim dollars that were paid prior to that. So they can be a little more aggressive, but 3% is slightly below dental trend. Dental trend tends to be about 4% is what we're seeing. The market right now is a little aggressive with dental, but I thought 3%, that's what we're using across a lot of our districts in the same boat as Vernon. So that's been bounced off of a few other people, not just.
okay. And I heard you correctly that year two, or after, I'd say the 12 months after the first 16 months, no increase it wouldn't be over 6%, or it'd be 6% or less, right?
Correct. Yeah, 6% is just the maximum that they would be allowed to increase. And there's no funny business there with sometimes carriers like to do things like a loss ratio cap, where they'll say if you're running between this, then, nothing here. This is a hard cap, 6%. Obviously, we're not going to hold them to 6% if you're running really, really well. That would just be a worst case number.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, that there were no caveats to that, because I would expect then once COVID is over, there might be a spike in claims, people going back to the dentist perhaps a bit more, but there's no caveat to that 6% cap. It's a hard cap?
A hard cap, that's correct.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, before we talk about this alternative plan here, we're going to look at the network. So some of you might remember that we did something similar for when we looked at the medical analysis, and I also did one for the Aetna analysis. So this is a very same format. It's just got the two different Delta networks here, Delta Premier and Delta PPO. So what Delta does is they layer two networks over one another as their primary approach. They have products that offer just the PPO network, and that's one of the things we're going to look at in a second. But then the majority of school district employees that are walking around with a Delta dental insurance card will actually have both the Delta PPO network, which is still a large network, and then they'll also have this Delta Premier network, which is even larger. And the reason why Delta Premier is an even larger network and tends to be the largest network for the most part, they kind of boast that, is because that gives dentists one of the highest, if not the highest, reimbursement on an in-network basis. So a lot of dentists want to participate with Delta in the Premier network because they're going to get more money from Delta than they would from, say, an Aetna or a Horizon or a Cigna or even Delta's PPO network. So it gives the members an access to a tremendous network. But the trade-off to that is that when they go out to use it, they're paying a percentage of, like, say, a major service. So like a Crown, for example, might be $1,000 to a Premier dentist. They're going to pay half of that. The benefit is 50%. So they would pay $500 and Delta would pay $500. If a member were to go to a Delta PPO dentist where the reimbursements to the dentist might be $700, it's a little bit lower, the member is going to benefit from that lower reimbursement. So what Delta tries to do here is they give that member the benefit of the doubt. So the member can access both PPO dentists and they can access Premier dentists. So this is all part of the education, the training that we would do with the district to train folks to be savvy or to talk to their dentist. The dentists are very well versed in this. But from a network analysis, 180 dentists were utilized for Vernon Township. So this is not a general analysis. This is Vernon Township people went to 180 dentists. And I believe the period for this was January of 19 through February of 20, if I'm not mistaken. It was a pretty recent period. And 107 dentists were in network with Horizon. Okay, so 107 were in network and 73 dentists were being seen out of network currently with Horizon. If everybody walked around with a Delta card in their hand, 155 of the 180 dentists would be in network with Delta Premier. 102 would have been in network with the PPO, so pretty close to the Horizon, but 155 are actually in network with the Delta Premier, with only 25 being out of network. So obviously 86% of a total network match is great, but it gets even better. If you were to go down here, this is probably the most important bucket, par to par analysis. That's participating with Horizon to participating with Delta. So anybody who went to any of these 107 dentists that were in network with Horizon, they would be 104 would be in network with Delta Premier, and 74 would still participate with Delta's PPO network. So almost 100% matched. We're looking at 3 dentists that would become out of network. In addition to that, the Delta network is superior to Horizon, at least in Vernon's neck of the woods. 43 of the out-of-network providers with Horizon would now become in network with Delta on the Premier network, and 21 with the PPO. So this is probably one of the strongest network matches that I've seen on the dental side. Dental, we typically look to see around 70%. I think when we were looking at Aetna, we were talking about 70% match is good. We're talking about 70% on their smaller network and 97% on their larger network. So from a network perspective, there shouldn't be any unhappy folks here. In my opinion, this is a really good match. Does anyone have any questions on the network piece? I don't know if I did a good job explaining the 2 different networks.
I think
what I'm going to do here is, if we go back to the financial analysis, what we're proposing is a dual offering. So this plan, the PPO plus Premier, that's that large network that we talked about. And this plan is equal to or better than the current plan that's in place today. What we're proposing is on March 1, we would do a static enrollment. So no open enrollment period. Everyone just went through a special enrollment period for the New Jersey Educators Plan. We just completed another open enrollment for the state health benefits plan. So what Brown & Brown is proposing here is that we would move everybody into the Delta PPO Plus Premier for March 1, and the district would hold a traditional open enrollment, business as usual, the way that you always have in May for July 1, but Delta will build this alternative plan and it will have it on the side waiting. If anyone elects to go into this plan, the benefits are almost identical to the existing plan. The difference is the network. So they would not have access to that large network. They would only have access to that PPO network. But the savings, there's premium savings there. So folks that are going to a dentist in that PPO network may opt to go into this plan effective July 1 and take the premium savings while still having a comparable plan to what they have today. So in fact, I think it's a little bit richer. You get a little bit more dollars to spend on that other option. So this is sort of we typically see high-low, we call it high-low in the district. It's becoming more uncommon for a district to only offer one dental plan. I can tell you we did also look at doing something called a DMO, like a dental HMO. It's just not a fit for where you are in New Jersey. There is only one dentist provider that participates in Sussex County. So obviously we can't look at that. That wouldn't be an option for your members. And those premiums, by the way, are like $11 or $12, for a single. So that's why we looked at exploring that. It's just not a fit. So this is probably your best bet for putting together a what's called a high-low offering. And we don't see any negatives to doing that for July 1.
Tom, that PPO plus Premier, you say is equal to or better. Is there that's not only in terms of network, but that's in terms of costs and out of pocket and deductibles?
So that's only in terms of the benefits, the costs, and the out of pocket. So the networks are not equal or not subject to equal to or better than. In this case, it's a non-issue because we're talking about 97% overlap. But even on a medical basis, the networks are always carved out from an equal to or better than guarantee because the dentist, the providers, they can choose to terminate anytime they want with a insurance carrier. So the benefits themselves, what people, the co-insurances, the deductibles, the out-of-network reimbursement level. So your Horizon current plan has a really rich out-of-network reimbursement. It's at the 90th percentile. That gives the dentist on an out-of-network basis one of the highest reimbursement levels. It costs your members a lot, but if they choose to go to an out-of-network provider, it leaves them with little to no balance billing, right? That evil saying that you hear about in the news sometimes. So Delta would match that as well. So Delta would match your benefit schedule to the T, and if they can't match it, they beat the benefit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I can't quite see is that potential savings there? Is that what's listed?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just blow this up a little bit more so we can hone in on that. So what I did here is if you were looking at this is a 12-month number. So if pretend that you weren't going to get an increase on July 1 of 2021, the 12-month rates for Delta would save the district about $40,000 annually. This is just pure premium, by the way. This does not account for Chapter 78. This is not the board obligation. This is just pure premium savings. So $40,000. When you do factor in the slight increase here of 3%, then you can look at saving about $66,000 over the 16-month period. Knowing that come July 1, anybody who moves into that lower option is only going to save the district even more money. So they'll save money through their Chapter 78 contributions. The district will save money as well. If everybody was in that low option, then yes, the savings could be as much as $116,000, but that's very unlikely to happen. So I like to focus here on this bucket, on the F column. And again, those rates would be good until July 1 of 2022 and could not increase more than 6%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from board members?
I just have one comment, and I don't know if this should go to Thomas or for somebody in our district, but since Thomas is from Brown and Brown, and we just went through the change in health benefits, the switching of benefits was seamless. And I think a lot of that was because of the, what was it, Schoolify, Karen, that was on?
Schoolify, yeah.
And everything was personalized to the actual person that was signing up, so they could see what they were getting, they would see what they were paying. There was no ambiguity in it at all. So Thomas, I don't know if you're responsible for that. If you are, congratulations, because it was a very easy process. If it was somebody within our school, they should get, and I would hope that it's going to be the same thing here when we do it.
Mr. Shea.
Matt,
Yeah.
it was very well done, Matt.
Yep,
Yeah.
it was a lot
excellent.
of work.
It took a matter of about a whole 10 minutes in the Sparta household to do it, so it was excellent.
And it was very clear. I agree. Yeah. And I'm sure our faculty and our employees all appreciated that.
Okay.
Yeah, I and Brown and Brown cannot take credit for that for Schoolify, but I've heard of your success story is outstanding. The quickness that they were able to get everything loaded and out the door for the employees was just incredible. And I've heard the same at other districts as well that launched that program for 1/1.
Great.
So yeah.
So is this something the board wants to do? You want to move forward with this?
Well, I probably going to talk to the association.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if we did.
That's the next step. Wanted to see how everybody felt here before we start presenting to them. But we can go ahead and then sit down with them and talk about this.
Well, it's going to save some money. I mean, not a whole lot, but still it's a saving.
Right.
The association, they've just gone through a change. They're going to go through another one. If we go forward with this, let's just ask them, tell them what's going on.
What has to be established is what each person would be saving. And
Joe,
the fact that there's a two-tier plan now, decision-making process. And it's a two-tier plan, the lower tier or the premium.
Sounds like it takes some education to learn how
Yeah,
to work
you
that
gotta
well.
go through that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, they would have to. So, and then once the union okays it, then we'd have to have Tom talk to the staff. I
So-
don't know if you want to put it to a vote, Karen. I don't know how you,
Can I ask one more question of
Yeah, I
Tom?
think you would have to.
Conversation, probably.
Tom, so you've obviously do this quite often, and this seems like almost like a no-brainer, right? But there has to be, I would imagine, obstacles or resistance you would have seen in prior situations that are similar to this. If you could educate us, what have you seen in the past? Where would be the resistance to do something like this?
So I like your term "no-brainer" because that's kind of what this is. Dental seems to be less sensitive than medical and or prescription. Dental is it's not something that's covered at every district the same way that you allow your employees to access it. It's with the network overlap being as high as it is, with only 3 dentists that are going to be out of network and it's not that the benefit doesn't have a nice sizable out-of-network plan. I honestly think that I don't see any pushback here other than, we just went through a change. You're going to put us through another change, which is why I'm recommending the approach of a static enrollment where you can say to the union, your members don't have to go through another enrollment period. It's going to be your normal open enrollment period for July 1. Brown and Brown is going to handle behind the scenes, moving everybody over into the equivalent plan. Obviously, we'll be there if there are any issues, but I don't foresee anything here. Delta is a reputable firm. We have a lot of business with them. And in fact, we actually did a move of another district in the heart of the pandemic. That was with Aetna, about half the size of Vernon, but in the heart of the pandemic, moved it over to Delta, and I couldn't be happier.
The financial sense of the decision is clear. The next step is to sit down with the union leadership and Brown to go over what we went over this evening. Is everybody comfortable with that plan?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. What about, was that a clear yes? Yes. Yes? Okay,
I'm not going to comment on it since I'm covered by it.
right.
All right. So you'll, Mr. Vino, your office, you'll organize
Yeah,
something
I'll work
between
with
Mr. Brown,
Shelley, of course.
Mr. Trujillo?
Yes, regarding those issues.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure. Yep.
All right. Thank you for, Mr. Triferi, was there another matter that we wanted to discuss this evening? Mr. Sweeney from Finance?
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
I don't think.
He said contractual matter. He doesn't have a mic.
Can that be forwarded to us?
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah,
information.
Tom, can you provide that information, that spreadsheet to the central office, and they'll send it out to the board?
I think I have it.
You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I have it.
Yeah, Donna, this is the same spreadsheet that I had sent earlier. So, okay.
I have it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night. And again, Happy New Year.
You as well,
Thank
thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Joe, do you need? Yeah. Do you need do you want a mic? Do you want to sit here? We can, yeah. Are you comfortable sitting down here? Okay.
Can the public hear?
Yeah, I don't know if they can hear you at home.
You want to borrow mine?
Or maybe we can just move it down if you're not comfortable.
You could just
Can we-
sit here.
We don't want to miss a word, Mr. Sweeney.
I don't know if you want to take a straw poll on that one.
All right, that was my statement. but I don't want to miss what he said.
Okay. Is Ms. Smith rejoining us?
Yeah, she's available. Would you like me to-
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, can you hear us? I think you're on mute right now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So we'll see if third time is the charm.
Is the charm, yes. I apologize. I don't know what the technology, you love it or hate it, right? All right, great. So as I was mentioning, we work with a significant number of boarding schools, private day schools, and public high schools. And then many of our team members are educators and have worked either in the private or the public schools as administrators, superintendents, teachers, coaches. So we have a significant amount of experience among our team. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Education's, we have welcomed to the United States for the past 15 years over students from over 50 different countries, very diverse F1 students that are quality students. We have an excellent host family division, which is listed with CSIET, which is an auditing, independent auditing organization, as well as we provide international awareness and then language support to our students as well. Next slide. This gives you a little bit of an overview of the diversity of our student enrollment. We have a significant diverse, this is from our 2019-2020 school year. So as you can see, we have quite a diverse group of students, and we do provide access for our US schools to reach a global audience. And that is my goal and my job for my school partners is to give them the exposure overseas to generate interest in their district and for students to choose the school to and district to attend. Slide. So there's not another organization that can provide the diversity. We do have some competitors that focus more on specific countries, and which is something that we haven't done. We do have offices in Brazil, Germany, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, France, Vietnam, and South Korea, as well as China. As well as we have 500 local student recruitment partners in over 50 countries. Go ahead, next slide. So as a partner with Educatious, we would determine boundaries with the school district of the type of student that you're looking for. And then Educatious would screen and determine which applications would be best suited for Vernon. So we would go through applications and make sure that we send the type of student to you, to this district that you're looking for. Our staff in the US collaboratively with our international offices and our agent partners, they try to follow an application process that is seamless for the school district as well. So we try to make this as smooth as possible. We try to do all the work behind the scenes for the school district until we need an I-20 from the district, which is what Homeland Security has given Vernon District authorization to issue. We really strive to provide our schools with as many opportunities to have exposure overseas, as well as we try to provide as much information to our overseas partners and our overseas potential students about your school district, and getting information from the district about highlights, new classes, extracurricular programs, teacher awards, school awards, anything that can highlight your district, I would want to know about, because that way I can generate that interest overseas and promote those highlights to our overseas partners and offices. Next slide. So as I mentioned, our partner schools are promoted overseas in our offices, and we do this through, we build a school profile for each of our schools. It's online, and then we do a printed brochure that is in each of our offices and each of our partners' offices overseas. We do highlights in newsletters, we do native language marketing, and social media. And our partners have the opportunity to, in a normal year, in a pandemic year, it's a little different, but in a normal year, you would have the opportunity to have visiting delegates from our regional offices overseas and potential students and their families to come and visit the school and make a decision whether or not they wanted to attend there, or they wanted to recommend students for your school district. Also, our partner schools are invited to participate in our international events, and we have overseas events that train our staff and our partners overseas about your school, to teach them about the district and what you have to offer, as well as this district would have the opportunity to interview potential students. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we are listed with CSIET, and this is a listing for F1 inbound day schools. It's an independent verification. We are audited every year. It is something that we do. We are not required to do this, but we do this to give our school districts assurance that we are doing the very best that we can with regards to providing excellent host families, screening host families, providing support to our students, providing strong enrollments to our high schools, and screening our staff. We also have a certification with ISO 9001, which also demonstrates our commitment to quality, and we are audited by them as well each year. We do have a formal quality control division. This also ensures very strict compliance with quality standards and child welfare, because we are working with minors. We have parents overseas that are trusting us with their children, And so we need to be sure that everyone is feeling confident in our services. So each student is provided a local coordinator. That local coordinator is going to be in touch with the student personally on a weekly basis when the first student first arrives during that first 30 days, and then on a monthly basis after that. They're also in touch with the school and with the host family on regular basis so that we can be sure that we're providing the best support that we can to everyone involved. Our goal is to give everyone a positive experience. We want students to have a positive experience with the United States, and we also want our host families and schools to have positive experience with students from other countries. So that's our goal. Next slide. And so we're committed to our school partners. Our goal is to help you meet your international student goals. And by doing so, we help to generate some additional revenue for your district. We also hope to be able to be involved enough with the district and know enough about the school and what's offered so that we can generate interest and bring students to the school. I want to thank you for your time on letting me come to present this to you, and we're hoping and looking forward to potentially being partnered with Vernon School District.
Thank you, Melanie. If you could hang for a minute, I'd certainly like the board members some opportunities to ask some follow-up questions or maybe some clarifying information. So members of the board, certainly feel free to ask some questions of Melanie Smith while she's still with us this evening.
I have a couple questions just in terms of size of programs that you work with, Melanie, from smallest to largest. Can you give us an idea of the size of programs that you currently work with?
Well, for the 2019-20 school year, we brought approximately 1,500 students to the United States to day schools and another 500 students to our boarding schools. We have had also about, it was approximately 350 students in our Canadian program as well. So we work with school districts that will take as small as 1 student, and we have some schools that want 30 international students. So based on what the goals are of your district is what we'll work towards. We have students, even in this pandemic, where we do have a lower number of students this year, of course, but we have significant interest in the 21-22 school year, and applications coming in actually at a normal rate, which is pleasantly surprising. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered my question. That's great. And so that 1 through 30 range, regardless of where our goals might be as a district, is it realistic to think that, let's say 2 dozen, I'm just throwing that number out there, it's not a real number, but if it were 2 dozen, the fill rate would be 100% you would expect?
Well, for the first year, I would never want a school district that hasn't had international students to take on that kind of a number. I would recommend more like 5 students, just because it can be a bit of an adjustment, and your counselors looking at students' transcripts, international transcripts, can be kind of a learning curve that is can be a little challenging. So for the first year, I would definitely feel that 5 students would be easily something that we could fill. Over the course of 2 or 3 years, then yes, maybe 1 dozen or 2 dozen students I would think would be more reasonable over a period of time.
Thank you. And last question, you did mention the number of public high schools and boarding schools and day schools that you work with. Offhand, do you happen to know your client retention rate or your school retention rate?
Our school retention rate, I haven't lost a school in 13 years. I've worked with some of my high schools for 13 years. Some of them have been, 5 years, 10 years, but I have I have one school in Maine that discontinued their international program because of the pandemic, and that's the only high school that we have stopped working with, and that's because they discontinued their international program.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any programs in New Jersey?
Yes, we do. We work with Shore Regional. We also work with DePaul Catholic, Rutgers Prep. So those are just a few schools in the New Jersey state that we do work with currently.
Kind of a follow-up on that, I'm sorry. Do you present our school as an option or as like the option?
We would present your school as an option. We do as I mentioned, we do a profile about each school and try to highlight things that are individual to that specific school. That way, if students can have a specific thing that they're looking for that your school offers, we can try to meet that and recommend that. As I work closer with schools, and I get to know them better, of course, as anyone does, we recommend things that we're most familiar with. And that, with Vernon being a new school, that is always exciting for me because I have a lot of opportunity to promote new schools and to generate interest for new schools because it is a new school and a new option that's available.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I do. Hi, my name's Teresa. And
Hi.
Interestingly, I am a DePaul Catholic alumni, so I'm familiar then with your program. I do have a question though. So if we have international students that come in with their own GPAs and whatnot, what happens when they get here? How does that affect our public school class rankings?
So typically with all transcripts, international transcripts, we go through an organization that's what they do. They translate international transcripts and try to give you a very accurate reading of that transcript so that the school can determine what credits students have actually received that are comparable with what your school district requires. So students are all of our students are required to maintain at least a C in each class. If we have students that ever fall below that, which we rarely ever do, but if we do have students that ever fall close to that or below that, we step in right away to help bring that up because we don't want to damage the school's rankings in any way. Having an international program is to enhance things at your school, and so we definitely do not want to ever cause any drop in rankings in any way.
Oh no, I understand that. I also have experience with international schools, so I understand how this works. But my question was, let's say we have a student who comes in from another country who's, let's say, a junior. And then that person, that child goes through the translation company with the international, and we figure out the credits. But let's say those 5 students, let's say, who are juniors, how do they affect the junior class ranking?
Well, that is definitely determined by the school district, because if your international program, your students are all ranked the way your domestic students are. For example, I have some high schools that they bring all their international students in as juniors, and because they're a public school, they don't have students coming in as seniors, and so they disenroll those students rather than it being like a dropout or that type of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to, like, let's say you have 100 students in your public school's junior class. You're going to have a top 10 or 15 group of students. Right. And my question is, if we're bringing in international students who are essentially, will they be competing against the students who are the 100 class students who are already there? how do the 5 juniors coming in affect the 100 students and each of their class rankings within each class?
Okay, so with that being said, I do have some high schools that do not allow international students to be considered with those rankings because they're a public school. If Vernon is open to students being able to be ranked and compete with their domestic students, the international students to compete with the domestic students, this is a decision that the district will choose. That's not something that we would determine for you.
Okay, so then that's up to each individual public school district and how they handle the class rankings for each individual class with the international students visiting.
Exactly.
And then, how long do the students generally stay?
The majority of our students stay for a full school year. We have a few students that will come in for a semester, but typically it's a full school year.
Okay, and then if they come in, then I guess that's another question I have. So they'll be available for extracurricular activities. So then with tryouts and, you know, all the different activities, they can join the activities as well, right?
Absolutely. And we would hope that that would be an option for them as well.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Actually, I have one more question. Who pays for the international translation company to have their transcripts done? Is that us or is that this company?
That goes through us. We have a package price that we put together for the students, and this translation is included in that.
Okay, so that's not something that we would have to pay out of pocket for.
Absolutely not. Yes.
All right, so what are the next steps from here, Ms. Davina?
I think the next steps, and I'll ask Melanie to help me out perhaps, is that I would ask Melanie to provide a draft agreement between Education and the Vernon Township School District, and it would be on the next board agenda as a motion to approve, of course, with additional discussion if necessary. Melanie, can you talk a little bit about your fee to the Vernon Township School District?
Our fee to this, okay, I'm not clear on that.
Right.
Is that that we discussed potentially?
Yeah.
Okay. So with Vernon's, the way that Vernon has set your tuition amount, we have several high schools, public high schools that are trying to generate more interest in their school. And so by doing so, the school district would, out of the tuition that's paid to them, would pay a $1,000 or $2,000 fee back to Educatius per student. This fee goes directly back to the student in reducing their fee in coming to the United States. And it also helps to put the school district more in a marketable, a market pricing for the rest of the world. China is probably the only area where pricing isn't an issue. For Europe, South America, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, everywhere else, they're much more price conscious. And so that is the fee that we had discussed. And this was basically to put Vernon in more of a price market for students to choose your district over other districts in the area.
So the only fee that we would be paying to you would be in the range of $1,000 to $2,000 per student?
That's correct.
So are the students then paying the fee to you? How does that arrangement work?
So the way that works is if we come to an agreement on a certain fee that would come back to Educatius, we automatically give that reduction to the student on their package price. So that means that the tuition amount would be reduced for those specific students coming to your district.
they're charging the students.
Okay,
Right.
Right, the students pay, we charge the students and their families for the program.
my other question, and this is more for you, Ms. Davino,
Sure.
and it's not a reflection on your program, Ms. Smith. It seems lovely. You seem like you're trying to get approval from the board in the short term rather than the long term. Is there a reason that you're looking to move more quickly?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason really is that, and I think Melanie touched upon it a little bit when she was talking about kind of the marketing of our school district and developing the school profile. That's generally done in December, and we're already in January. So the only reason that I'd like to, move forward, and certainly if the board has additional questions between now and the 21st, please call me, email me. I can easily call Melanie and get additional questions answered. I can put them back out to a memo to the board for the full board, so everybody has additional information if there are other concerns. But part of the challenge is that if we're looking at 21, 22, which I would like to entertain by establishing a program with 5 students, I'd be very pleased to start with 5 students and see how we do. I mean, if you remember when I brought this to the board, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago when we first talked about it, the goal was eventually to look at a group, a cohort, 2 dozen or whatever it may be, to really generate some revenue for the district. Of course, that would not happen for 21, 22, but perhaps for 22, 23, which, as you know, is a challenging year for us financially. So do I think a month makes a difference? Probably not. I mean, Melanie would probably know that better than I would. But and as far as the school profile and the marketing, this is really in the hands of at the international forum and at their level. But I would like to move in a positive direction if we can, for sure.
Have we talked to other organizations other than Educatius?
Yes, I actually put it in my report from the December superintendent's report. I don't remember how many I listed, but we had to talk to at least a dozen. I mean, and I credited Mrs. Gagliastro. I mean, I basically gave her a list of all the certified organizations, and she called and emailed
Now I remember you
over
saying
and over
that,
and over again. Because some folks, it is hard to get in touch with the organizations or the agency, rather, I'm sorry. And I feel confident that Educatius is a good fit for Vernon. But of course, I wanted to bring Melanie here to the board so you could ask additional questions. And again, just because the motion's on the agenda doesn't mean that it passes. There's an opportunity to talk about it again, right? We do the first and the second. We have some more discussion. So, but I would like to take a look at that for the 21st of January.
I am fine with entertaining the conversation about the 21-22 school year. I would like to get more concrete data on what type of tuition rates we're looking at. I'd obviously like to see a draft agreement with Education.
Certainly.
And really have a more clear understanding of the revenue projections and then some of the financials of the decision.
Yeah, so let me understand that, Mr. Annunziata. So you'd like to look at maybe revenue projections?
Yeah, I'd
Yes?
like to know exactly what type of tuition we were talking about.
Okay, so that was in my superintendent's report from December.
Okay.
I did inform the board in my superintendent's report that, and Melanie actually touched on this a little bit. Our cost, I'm sorry, for what we had board approved at one time was an unsubsidized per capita total of $30,000. However, Melanie, if I'm not mistaken, $30,000 takes us out of the market of Europe and puts us only in the market of China. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so, and after speaking with many agencies, not just Educatius, the range I'm hearing is about $14,000 to $16,000. And that range, would put us more in the market of Europe, Melanie, and perhaps some other places. Can you expand on that?
Yeah.
I hope we didn't lose her.
No.
No.
Did we lose her?
Cliffhanger.
No.
Okay.
Is
so,
she gone?
It
Okay.
doesn't look like she's here. So
Yeah.
if we can get, really concrete numbers on what you are proposing, we set the tuition rate at, so we could really play out what the revenue would be when
Certainly.
we make the decision.
There are a couple of data points. Pretty,
So I heard tuition rate.
Yeah.
I heard revenue projections, other items from other members of the board. I just want to try to get as much as I can for everybody.
I think we should find out, since it's basically a high school driven program, what our cost per pupil is that's in the high school.
I have that. That was in my report also. Cost per pupil is $18,784.
But what about extracurricular activities? Is that included in that number? So let's say
Yeah.
a student goes out for an activity.
Yeah, so if I may, and Donna will help me, because when she first got on board, one of the things from the taxpayers guide that was driving me crazy from the spring was this adequacy formula that the state basically determined some of our state aid on. So, Steve and I talked about it a lot. He left, Donna came in. And basically the state determines an adequacy number for a student. And then when they have other considerations for that child, other adjustments are made to the state aid. So for example, if a child is socioeconomically disadvantaged, that goes into the formula. If they are an ELL student, that goes into the formula. If they are,
I'm sorry to cut you off. But my question would really be, and I don't know how we're going to quantify this as a school district, what our marginal cost would be, because, the cost per pupil is going to take into consideration all of our fixed costs at the high schools as well, which is like, we're not going to have another principal because we add 5 more kids.
Right.
We're not going to have another vice principal, another guidance counselor, but how do we quantify what it costs to educate one more child? Or 2 more children, or 5.
What's the contribution to the fixed cost?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because we have to take that fixed cost component out, because we're not gonna have to heat the building more.
Right.
We're not gonna have to
Right.
use more electricity
Yeah.
or
That
more
was-
custodians.
that was part of my point. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
I
no,
would
you're
have
right.
to
The
imagine
only-
it's got to be 80% fixed.
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
right? So.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is that one of the things that Melanie did mention is that we choose the students, right? So I mean, in part, right, they do some of the screening and the interviews. So you do have the ability to address some of those costs as you're recruiting your children. Do you know what I mean? They have to maintain a C average, et cetera. So they technically should not receive need additional services that would be costly to the district. That's part of that. But I understand what you're saying about
Yeah, you really
how to quantify it.
have to pull those fixed costs out.
I will have to figure out how to do that, but I think through the adequacy formula and through conversations with Melanie that we can probably do that.
I would guarantee.
I'm guessing that's where some of these other high schools are getting their lower numbers from.
Yeah.
And that's why they're coming in at 16, 17, and we're coming in at 30.
Right.
Okay, because we're using all of our fixed costs in our formula, and
Yeah.
if it is, like Mark said, an 80% number, that's considerable.
Well, yeah, I think the problem, the hurdle is, and one of the reasons why I brought it up is the taxpayers are going to go and say, all right, we have a $66 million budget. We have 3,000 kids. It costs $22,000 per kid.
Yeah.
And not to single out the kids that are out of district, but that's a large sum of money that is not going towards a kid that's in our district, a child in our district. So there's other things that go into those costs that a kid in high school doesn't see either. So that's why I think it's really important to go ahead and figure out what that number is, and then use that number. Now, when you said the $14,000 to $16,000 to bring us into the Europe market, is that including the fee to the host family as well?
No, so Melanie, now that you're back.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about on my end, to kind of come back to the table for the board about, how do we quantify the actual cost to the district? But the question that Mr. Sparta just had for you was, if Vernon, we're talking about setting a tuition rate of $14,000 to $16,000, the question is, what about the host family? Who pays for that? And what is the district netting, I guess? Is that part of the question, Brad?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when you said the $30,000 for the China market, I assume that's including the host family.
Right.
If you're saying 14, 16 for Europe, is that including the host family?
Good. Melanie?
That actually is not including the host family. So that's the amount of money that would go to the district. The host family is going to be over and above that, what this family pays for because we do compensate our host families a little bit. We want to be sure that students are well cared for, and providing families with a little bit of compensation and reimbursement for having another child in their home is very beneficial. Our package price also will include their health insurance. It also includes a support person for them that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what this district would net would be the tuition amount that we agree on.
Right.
So really,
so-
that 1416, we're not really far off from that as far as.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close. So for example, I mean, if it's the $14,000 to $16,000, the other cost, right, to the host family, health insurance, et cetera, that's the responsibility of the child and their family from the country that they're coming from, correct?
That's correct.
And
they,
right?
I apologize.
Sorry, Melanie. That's typical with, I learned this through many interviews. This is how this business works, right? I mean, for people who are applying overseas to come for an American school education or an experience, they understand that there's a tuition to the school and there's other living fees like the host family health insurance, et cetera, right?
Exactly. And Homeland Security also requires the natural family to provide documentation that they're able to support their child, that there's adequate funds set aside, for their child while they're in the United States.
I'm sorry, did you say the host family or the family sending the child?
The natural family.
Natural
I
family.
apologize. If I said host family, I meant natural family.
Fine, I wasn't sure. Thanks.
Okay, so
Anything
somehow.
else for Melanie?
No.
Okay.
No, but somehow we'll have to identify what the variable
We
costs
can.
are that are going to go into educating
Yeah.
one more child.
Okay.
That's the true cost here.
Yes, we will do our best to figure that out. I think if we take a look at some of the adequacy formula and kind of backing it down, and we will certainly put some projections together for the board for the 21st. So based on the conversation around the table, I'd like to place on the 21st, which is the January 21st meeting, public work session, a motion to approve Educatius as our agency, certainly with the understanding that myself, Ms. Reese, Dr. McKay will go back to the drawing board and try to provide these other questions so that the board can have another option to ask additional questions on the 21st. Is that appropriate?
Well, we're going to have a motion to approve, but we haven't, we don't have any of the data. We don't have the contract.
Right, that's going to be supplied. I think Brad asked that question.
I just feel like we're rushing, but. It's just
But are we running against the clock if we want to go into?
Yeah, we
next
are a
school
little
year?
bit.
You really are. If you're wanting students for the 21-22 school year, now is our recruiting period. We usually finish up recruiting in March or April. We've been recruiting all of fall for the 21-22 school year at this point.
This
don't
was-
even know what our own district looks like. We don't
I
even
can't
know.
hear you.
Yeah, I
gotta
can't hear
move.
you, Kelly.
Kelly, move your
I
mic.
can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We don't even know what our own district looks like in the next months. Like, I don't understand why we're rushing into this whole thing. We don't even know what it's going to look
Yeah.
like in September.
You mean in terms of going back to school or?
Well, yeah. I just think that this is an odd conversation to be having. We have just so many bigger things to talk about. But if you all agree, then
I guess,
Have it on the agenda.
if we are starting small with the program, I'm okay with entertaining it for the next school year. I wouldn't be okay with it if we were looking at an expansive program, but if we're talking about just a real handful of students to begin this process.
I guess my other concern I'm thinking about at the moment is man and woman power involved. Not only our school district, but every school district in Jersey is almost at a breaking point. And every teacher is spread thin, every guidance counselor, every single person
who's
is.
going to be a host family?
I'm sorry, what?
Who's going?
And that's our responsibility. We have a very extensive host family division, what we call a student placement division, and we place students like I said, we've had 1,500 students in the United States that we've screened host families for, but that's our responsibility, is to secure host families. And to be honest, we've been able to secure host families for DePaul and Shore Regional and Rutgers Prep this year without really any problems. We do make sure that our students, before they leave their country, they do have to have a negative COVID test. We do quarantine them once they get here for 2 weeks to be sure that, you know, everybody feels safe with them being here. So we do try to take precautions for host families as well, to be sure that everyone feels confident.
I mean, thank you for answering the host. That was Kelly's question. But my concern, and I would be remiss not to voice this publicly, we are at our absolute stretching point right now with COVID. Like I was saying, our teachers are spread thin, our guidance counselors, everybody, you just, you know, fill in the blank of who it is. And I'm just looking at it like, at the moment, we're trying to do everything humanly possible to meet our students' needs, and that's incredibly difficult. So now we tie in taking even more students and not making any money during the first year. Now we have to also think about our human resources.
What do you mean by not making money?
Yeah, I think we're only talking 3, maybe 5 students at most.
Well,
And
Ms. Davino just said there would be no, what did
I
you say
think
about the
I
first
think we're all
year?
thinking
No,
we'd be
first
starting
year.
small.
21, 22, I would hope for 5.
Right, and then how much money would we make the first year?
If the tuition is 14,000 or 15,000 per child times 5 students.
I mean, you're looking
That
at
would-
$75,000 in revenue in year one, minus
Right,
your,
so
minus your
75,
variable expenses.
Right.
Okay, so let's go 65 just to whatever. So is
Yeah.
$65,000 worth it for us next year when we are completely spread thin at what we are right now? I mean, look at what we've gone through the past few months. We have we had over 1,000 students failing. We're trying to meet those students' needs. We've placed a great amount of expectation, understandably, on our administrators, on our teachers, on guidance. I mean, again, I just fill in the blank, but I mean, maybe everybody else is on board with going ahead, but I'm just a little concerned about,
Well,
you know.
I just think the timing is odd. Like, I
Well,
just
I do
think that
think
we
we have
should.
to look forward to, I think September, things will be different. Quite sure of that. I do think starting small to learn how all of this works. I think there's a learning curve involved, as Melanie said as well. And as we look towards then the year after and the years after, when the financial crisis is even worse, we could be up and running with a more substantial program. And it's not just financial. I do think the cultural diversity is a good thing. I think it's a win-win on the student experience as well as the financial.
I don't believe it's a win-win right now at all. I
I
think
don't
we
think
are,
so either. but
we're
you can
limping.
Put it on the agenda if you
If
want.
we're limping, our school district's limping, yes, down the road, there's a financial aspect that might be beneficial, and I'm not going to disagree with you. But I think right now that if we're limping, it's so incredibly difficult even to take on 5 more students who, in addition, and I understand they're saying, you know, what the international company will be providing for us, the agency, but we will be having 5 more students who will need services in the sense of, I'm just going to go, let's say, to guidance or whatever it is, when we're at a point of being stretched so thin. And I would just be remiss not to mention that and bring that up right now.
I just think we should focus on our own right now.
I understand the concerns about COVID and the stress that the district's under. I agree with Mark that we shouldn't take the big picture out of this. You know, this is about planting seeds that will grow over time. I think even if we're at 75,000 in revenue in year 1, by year 2, you could be at 150,000, in year 3 at over 200,000. I mean, we talk a lot about revenue generating programs. I understand that it will require manpower administratively to get this up and running, and then once the students are in the schools, it will require manpower from our faculty. But you know, if we're serious about revenue generating programs, it's going to take time to develop those. The country is in the process of rolling out the vaccine. I am not a scientist or medical professional, but I hope to see light at the end of the tunnel this year with the pandemic. So I think that this certainly wasn't on my horizon, but I think it's worth considering.
is there any out-of-pocket cost by selecting these people to work with? In other words, is there an initial fee that they charge or anything like that? Or is this something where we select them as the people we're going to use, and as we move down the road here, we say, hey, you know what? 21, 22 isn't going to cut it, but we're going to do it right, and we're going to plan for 22, 23, just so that we can do it correctly, not be rushed, et cetera, not worry about the pandemic. I just think that, given the pandemic and what's going on right now, and, our country not being able to get vaccines out in time and throwing some away and everything else, I think 21, 22 school year for something like this is somewhat of a dream. I think that if we're going to do it, by selecting them, a resolution or a motion to select them is one thing. But I mean, if we're going to take our time and do it correctly, so that way when we come out the gate with this, it's done properly, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I'm not known as an optimist, but I'm really hopeful that things will be a lot different by September. And I do think that we should explore this. Melanie, is there, if anything were to go completely sideways with the vaccine and COVID, how committed are we? Like, is it possible to pull the plug on something like this if the picture changes dramatically?
Absolutely. We can put together an agreement, but the district's not required to accept any students. If you come back to me and say, this is just not going to work this year, we need to put it off, that's completely fine. We can definitely do that. And there's not a fee for the district to agree to partner with us. We don't charge the district a fee of any sort, for us to recruit or promote you. We're very selective on the districts that we work with. And so if Vernon wasn't as great of a district as it is, we wouldn't even consider this partnership. But there's not any out of pocket for the district. And if, say, in July, Karen calls me and says, you know what, we just really can't do this year, that's completely fine. We will continue to promote the district. We will continue to have your profile out there, and I will continue to market the school in hopes that maybe January of 2022, you may be open to a semester student, or we wait until fall of 2022 and work on that school year.
When do we need to commit to a student? Like, when do the students put in their applications, you assign them a school, and you ask us to sign off on that?
So once we receive an application requesting the school district, we send it to you rather quickly, and we want to have some kind of a decision, whether it's an acceptance or a denial, within about 2 weeks. That way, if it is a denial, we can then move the student on to another school. Typically, you're looking at May and June when we are wanting to receive our acceptances and to have those by, because that gives the students time to make their appointment with the consulate and have their interview, and then have time to get their visa back to them, which is usually about a 30-day turnaround for them. Because once they get their visa, then they can make their flight arrangements, and then we put them in touch with the host family, and they can start to build a relationship with them. So we're looking at probably May. I would suggest for decisions on acceptance for students.
Out of curiosity, how many schools have you turned down in New Jersey within, say, the past 2 years?
So I typically I don't have a lot of schools that reach out to me. Take that back. I have schools that reach out to me, but if they're not, I do research on the school before I go back to them. And if it's not the type of school that we want to work with, I just let them know that at this time we're not bringing on any additional partners. When I was in contact with Karen and I researched Vernon, I continued to stay in touch with her and she with I, because I do want to have, I've had 2 other school districts in New Jersey that just I didn't feel like they fit exactly what we were looking for. That I just let them know at this time we weren't bringing on any new schools.
So then 2, and you just said we're not taking on any more schools.
Right. And that's just typically what I tell schools when they don't fit our profile.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Vino, so would you like to move forward with recommending a draft agreement for?
Yes, I'd like to place it on the
January 21st.
agenda for January 21st. I know I have some work to do. It's 3 weeks from now. This was also in the superintendent's goals that was approved by the board in November, at least to explore. Certainly understand the board has every right to vote no to any recommendation that the superintendent brings forward. But I've been given a list of items to follow up on, right? And hopefully I will hit the mark. In the meantime, if people have other questions, please let me know so that I can provide the information that's necessary to receive approval. My goal 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, when I interviewed as superintendent, and it was quite clear for the board committee who interviewed me, and many of you are not here anymore, but the goals were pretty clear that revenue generating programs was something that the board at the time wanted me to try to bring to the district. We've done everything else in Vernon. We've done the the ESIP program, we've done solar panels, we've done a lot of other things. I don't want to speak, for Melanie and the reason she turned down 2 schools in New Jersey. There are not many schools that go through the extreme challenges of getting this approved, at the national level. I mean, it is, when we received permission last year to get the permission to issue the I-20 for the students, that's not something that is given to public schools. We talked about Rutgers Prep, we talked about DePaul. Those things are generally reserved for private schools, day schools, boarding schools, etc. It's very rare to see a public school participate in this kind of a program, but it can be beneficial both on the revenue side and on the cultural diversity side. But I will do my due diligence to bring back information next week, on the 21st. And the board votes how they vote, right?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Melanie, thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Happy New Year, everyone.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, do you think we should provide some more direction? I mean, it would be a shame if superintendent were to do more legwork when I think Strawman says no. I'm not sure where.
I mean, I'm fine with doing a straw poll. I think that the board needs to ultimately vote on this. But why don't we do a straw poll to determine if the board has interest in exploring this for the 21-22 school year?
On a limited basis.
On a limited basis of
that,
5
yeah.
students or less. I'm comfortable going first. My position is pretty clear. I am interested in exploring it. Mr. Chili?
I am as well.
Yes.
Nadina? Ms. Pellet?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Coggle?
No, not the following year I would.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes, I am.
You're for 21-22?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it makes sense.
Mr. Sparta?
Yeah.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yeah.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think continue to do the legwork and,
Okay.
bring that back to the board with your final recommendation.
Thank you. And I appreciate the consensus. It gives me some direction, which is what I need. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay. Item E is public participation limited to items on the work session agenda and any student comments. Seeing nobody here in person, we'll go to the Zoom chat to see if any any public attendees would like to make a comment. If you would like to, please raise your hand and you'll have 5 minutes after we admit you. Okay, seeing no hands raised, we will close it to the public at this time. Item F is review of the public meeting agenda. This was in your packets. Any questions? Any questions from the board?
No.
Then we'll go on to item G, Ms. Davino.
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple of items. The first item says June recognitions. One of the things I wanted to propose to the board was to consider having a June non-action meeting to be hosted perhaps outside at the Masserino Stadium to kind of put a capstone perhaps on the last year and a half of COVID things that we've missed out on. So typically at our board meetings, and I've missed it, I think many of you have too, you know, we've been able to honor our retirees, Teachers of the Year, Hall of Fame, and we really haven't been able to do that because of COVID. So it's just a suggestion, but possibly having, like I said, a non-action item, a non-action meeting outside, a celebratory opportunity to recognize so many folks that have missed out on getting the accolades, you know, publicly from all of you. And I just wanted to bring it forward for discussion. Something that occurred in a previous district when I was a principal, thought I'd like to bring it back to this board to discuss.
Is this something the board is interested in hosting?
Sure.
Do we also get the people from last June that we?
Yeah,
Yes.
everybody we missed.
I think it's a nice idea.
Okay.
So is that a
Yes.
consensus to consider for June?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that you'll want to start putting a date on the calendar the
Yeah.
next few months so we can start beginning
I
to
also
send out
have to-
invitations.
Yeah, and I have to work around turf replacement and graduation and that
Yeah.
kind of thing, right?
So
So
the
a
sooner
lot
that's
happening.
planned,
Yeah.
the better.
Why don't I maybe come back next time with a proposed date? Is that acceptable to the
Yeah.
board?
For the next work session, you can update
And a
us.
theme.
And a theme.
Yes.
Well, I'm good
Kelly-
at themes,
Yeah,
Cal.
Kelly was thinking a luau
Yes,
or.
I was. I wanted to do that in
Yeah.
June. I got voted down.
That's right.
So Justin, did you say the next work session? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, I think it, you know, you can update us at next work session.
February work session.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. February work session. We need the date.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. The next item under superintendent is an update on the director of special services. So in September, we actually had 2 administrators that were out at that time. If you recall, Deb Merrill, our former director of special services, had retired over the summer. And we actually had a notice that one of our supervisors of special services was also going to be out. So in September, I informed the board that I was going to post for interims for both the director and for the supervisor of special services, because we were down 2 administrators out of 3 in one department. After the posting went up for both the interim director and the interim supervisor, the supervisor of special services came back to school, so I only had 1 vacancy left. I did follow through in receiving, I only received 7 applications for the interim director. I screened 5 of the 7 on October 7th. I did it via Zoom. And just for the purposes of people who don't know, when you look at an interim position, an interim is almost like a sub, if you will. Sorry, Donna. But what that means is that, you know, the superintendent will screen the candidates and make a recommendation for a short amount of time pending, you know, finding somebody to fill that position. So on October 7th, I screened the candidates for interim director. I didn't have the need to fulfill the interim supervisor anymore because that person came back. I did not find somebody who I felt would meet the needs of the district. However, we are still in need of a director. My hope, I recently posted for a director because we still have that vacancy. Moving forward, I would look forward to utilize the same process that we did when we hired our previous director, which is working with the Special Services Committee, once all the committees are reestablished, of course, working with the CPAG. In the past, what we did was I asked Special Services as well as CPAG to come up with the qualifications, the wants, the profile, if you will, of the next director, created questions around that, and then began the interviewing process. So certainly open for questions, but that's the update.
What is your timeline?
Well, as soon as committees are established and chair people and so forth, I don't know what that timeline looks like between.
It should be done by the next board meeting.
Tomorrow.
By the next board meeting.
Very soon.
Soon.
We'll have it tomorrow.
I'll have it tomorrow. Do I get a happy face on it?
Well, Mark Chili didn't do that, but everybody else did.
Okay, but thank you. I mean, as soon as that happens, I'd reach out to the chair of special services and talk to that person about the procedure moving forward. And of course, elicit the support and the assistance of CPAG. I think both CPAG and special services were very, very helpful last time around. I appreciated working with them in regards to the interview process. So if I'm able to have that conversation by the end of the week, beginning of next, then we could probably have a meeting next week, schedule interviews for the week after that as a round one, depending on people's availability. So before the end of January, we could look at a round one. We could end up with a round two by the beginning of February. But keep in mind, even if we don't find someone till February, and that would be a little rapid, if it's somebody who has experience, then that would be my recommendation. They have to give a 60-day notice. So we still might not have someone until April. But I'm pleased that the committees are going to be set up so quickly. Thank you. But I would like to get moving on the process.
Okay. We'll get that right over to you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Okay.
Okay.
Item H, Ms. Reese.
Yes, items 1 through 3 are standard monthly reports that you have been getting.
Can I ask a question about the personnel report?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a question about the personnel report?
Yes, that was my next thing. Does anybody have any questions?
Where are the pandemic response people accounted for in the personnel report?
They are under part-time under custodian maintenance.
They can't be. Because we had 17 part-timers at the end of June and now we have 15. But we hired 10 or 12 or whatever pandemic response people?
I think we're down to 12 because people have left, but that's where I thought they were being reported.
Yeah, you would have seen a spike, right?
So on
Absolutely.
June, so on 6/30/20, your column for part-time shows 17. And there's no increase.
But there's no spikes anywhere else either.
That's my point. They're not accounted for any place.
And there's no aides from September until December. Why is that?
I don't know. I asked that in November where they were, and that's why they got on in December. If I didn't ask in November, I don't think it would have been on in December either.
Well, I mean, it's September all the way through December. There's no aides.
I know.
But once the contracts were issued, we put the aides in on 12/17. As for the part-time custodians, I don't. Donna,
I'll
are you
follow up.
Okay.
I'll find out and I'll get back to
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Dr. McKay, can you explain that again? Once the contract, what for the aides?
Well, Mr. Sparta called us on that and
Right.
said that we didn't have the aides listed in the personnel report, so we put them in.
I know, but why weren't they listed? Like, why was there zeros?
They didn't have contracts, I think, but I don't know.
But they're still in the district working.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Right, so they should have been in there. Yes, it's a mistake.
So that, I mean, when Brad brought it up back in November, so then all those months, does that mean we had 0 aides,
No,
part-time aides?
no, it does not.
Okay, so then if Brad, I'm really confused, because then
Right,
that would
so if-
mean our personnel report has been wrong for months.
So we can put those numbers in for the months that they were there. I will go back to Nancy, get the exact numbers and put them in.
Well, so then we can't approve this
We
document?
don't approve it anyway.
Okay.
It's just.
It will be corrected.
informational. Any other questions on personnel enrollment or HIV?
Okay. So I'll get back to you as soon as I get a response on that. Item number 4 is a follow-up from the December 17th meeting. I think President Nunziata asked for a discussion on the capital funding of the field and track project. And there are 3 possible ways to fund it, but I wanted to reach out to the auditor and get his take on it. And his request is that we take the money out of capital reserve. And then when the year end closes and he calculates excess surplus at that
Don,
time.
can you speak louder, please?
Sure.
Is the fan or something over here? Yeah.
I'm sorry, the auditor recommended that we take the funding out of capital reserve. And when he calculates the excess surplus, which he does at the end of the year, and he comes to you, then we can either replenish the capital reserve, set up other reserves, or decide what you want to do with that money at that time. And he'll have the exact number at that point, rather than us trying to guess what the number is. Does that make sense? So there was a request to have the finance committee discuss this and bring it forward to the board, but I think after speaking with the auditor, we should probably follow his advice.
So when we actually encumbered money, we don't have to determine where that comes from at the time when it's encumbered, correct?
Well, see, that's the other thing. I can't encumber the money until we go through the budget process, because this money was never publicly declared in the current year budget. So
But if it was taken out of capital reserves, it can be encumbered.
no, it hasn't been taken out of capital reserve yet.
No, I'm saying if we decide to take it out of capital reserves, then it could become encumbered at that time.
Yeah, it gets appropriated into the budget and then it can be encumbered. Yes, so
But I guess my question building off that is, why do we have to wait for the budget process? Because like, let's say the roof caved in.
well,
We
that's an
needed to-
emergency
Okay,
situation.
so there's a differentiation
Yes.
in use?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you do another capital project, which is what this project is considered, it has to be first set up in your long-range facility plan, which I was able to find that record. And even though the estimates were lower than what the cost is actually going to come in at, it was clear that the district did have in their plan those 2 items to be replaced. So that was one hurdle. Then I called the county and asked for advice on how to, handle this going forward, because I cannot do a purchase order until the budget process is complete. So the county suggested I issue a letter of intent to the vendor with a follow-up May 1st after the budget is approved with an official PO. But the letter of intent will allow the vendor to do the planning and the manufacturing that has to get done to keep us on track to get this project done over the summer 2021. The reason why we have to wait for the budget process is because it wasn't put in the budget this year. So as we go into next year's budget, we will declare that we're going to take the money out of capital reserve, appropriate it into this year's budget, and the county will then, because in lieu of having a vote from the public, the county approves. The county will then approve it, and then we are allowed to do that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So my question to you is everybody comfortable with the capital reserve withdrawal? And then are you comfortable with me writing a letter of intent to the vendor to keep this project on track?
Which is what we agreed to last month.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Because we voted to approve the project. So I
Right.
think,
Well, you voted to award the project, but
Right.
then there was the question about the funding. And then when I called the county and talked to him about the budget, he suggested that I amend that resolution, which is going to be on the 21st, to say in that resolution that it's subject to board and county approval of our 21-22 budget.
okay.
Because you really couldn't award it since it wasn't in the budget, wasn't
See.
declared in the budget.
What were the other choices other than taking it out of cap reserve?
You can fund it excess surplus fully, half and half, or all capital
Okay.
reserve. So those are the three.
What's our capital reserve balance right now?
It's over.
We deposited
eight-
500 in it,
eight
right?
something,
Yeah.
865, I think, maybe?
So we could encumber it all out of capital reserves right now.
You cannot encumber it at this point,
Because it wasn't budgeted for.
right?
Because it's not
But
emergency
I
use.
don't understand that reasoning, because your capital reserve is for capital projects. And your capital projects generally aren't budgeted for in your budget.
Your capital projects now have to be declared in your budget.
When did that change?
I think that changed when everybody moved the vote, when they decided to get rid of the April election and move it to November.
Back in 2012? Unless it's an emergency
I don't know when you
use.
did it, unless it's an emergency, right?
We could just go forward with, allocating it out of capital reserve. And once we do further analysis of where our excess surplus fund balance is at the end of the year, we have another opportunity in June to redeposit funds into capital
Absolutely.
reserve to
So it's
replenish
the-
the account,
Right,
to a more comfortable level.
absolutely. And then you'll know your exact numbers, you won't guess.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Or you can, at that point in time, encumber half from excess fund balance and then half from capital reserve. Well, the budget will be
yes.
approved already though. Yeah, but I'm saying at that point in time, she's saying you can't encumber it until after the budget's done. What I'm saying is after the budget's done, you can encumber half from capital reserve and half from excess
Well, when
fund
I
balance.
do the budget, there's a recap of fund balance that I have to declare what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So I have to know by the time, or I don't have to know, Teresa has to know by the time she does the budget, which way she's going to handle it.
And if we're going to use excess surplus to replenish the capital reserve
Exactly.
anyway,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's one hand feeding the other hand is
Right.
all it is. So I don't think you need board approval to sign a letter of intent though, because we voted to award a project. So
How we have to execute.
yeah,
doing the
this is
project.
just you guys executing.
Right, I'm not
that.
going to ask for a roll call or
Okay.
anything. I'm just informing you that that's what I
Yeah.
plan on doing tomorrow if you're comfortable with it. I plan
Yeah.
on sending
Does
you
anybody
a-
have any objection to that plan of action?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. And then we are pulling recommendation number 1 off, so I would like did you mention that, Justin? Should I take a motion to
No,
table
you can pull it because no motion has been made yet.
Okay. So recommendation number 2 is that the board approve the designation of public agency compliance officer to myself in accordance with NJAC 17:27-3.3.
We have a motion for recommendation 2.
To move?
Second, Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Barna. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Ludner.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, item I is for public participation for items on the agenda or any other business. Anybody here in person? We will go to those who are attending via Zoom. If any attendees would like to submit a public comment, please raise your hand. You'll be admitted and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Okay, seeing no public comments, we will close it to the public at this time. Item J is open board member forum.
I would just like to see where we are as far as the 19th goes, because we're not meeting until the 21st. So are we on track for opening on the 19th?
I have a meeting with the Department of Health Friday, so I really can't make a determination right now until I meet with the Department of Health Friday. I know that's really a challenge, but remember when we went fully virtual, it was based on a recommendation of the Department of Health that they were projecting an increase in COVID cases over the break and due to travel, et cetera, Christmas, the holidays, Thanksgiving, and we did see that. On Friday, if they tell me the projection is that number will come down, then I'd say we're on track for opening on January 19th. I won't know more until I meet with the Department of Health on Friday.
Because I just want to give our community
Certainly.
the opportunity to have a heads up.
Actually, Dr. McKay and I shot a podcast today. It was really more about, some other things that are currently happening. But one of the things I stated was that I'll know Friday and put something out to the community by Monday so that they have a week's notice to get ready. I know that's not a lot of time, but I do need to circle back to the Department of Health before I bring a plan forward and execute that plan for our community.
I mean, do you think it would be advantageous to change up the meeting to meet before the 19th? So that if we had any members of the public that had any comments on anything that.
Well, look, I mean, quite honestly, and I'm going to be frank here. I've been told from everybody in the world that it's the superintendent's decision.
Okay.
I've been told by the board. I've been told by the teachers union. I've been told by the governor. And believe me, that responsibility weighs extremely heavy on me. I don't sleep a lot. I take that responsibility to heart. All I can say is that I will review the information that I have, provide ample opportunity for our families to receive up-to-date information and scheduling. We did meet with the administration today. My message to them was, I want to know your plans, not today, but that I need to know exactly what they look like over the next couple of days so that Dr. McKay and I can review them. And if we do reopen on January 19th, that we're ready to roll. So we do have some work to do. I'm hopeful. The one thing I will say is that if we're able to reopen on January 19th, and I said this in a couple of different reports, I put it in writing I think for the November report, I'd have to go back and check, that we could reopen in Orange. Remember that the entire county, with the exception of 4 schools, us, Sparta Newton, and Ed Services Commission, was open. That was risky for them, right? But if we are able to open on January 19th, I would make sure that I put out information to families, letting them know that, we are operating under some very strict guidance of the Department of Health. We're going to adhere to everything they tell us to do, including quarantines, including not sending children to school when they're ill, et cetera. So, but I'm hoping to get more information Friday. I will say what I feel hopeful about, and I'll echo Jen Pellet a little bit before, even though, she and I haven't always seen eye to eye on COVID, and I think she knows what I mean. But, there was an article today that we are moving vaccines in New Jersey to the 1B tier. The information I shared with the district and the board, I shared with the community today. Everybody should have access, should they desire, right? Should they choose to get the vaccine. I registered. I don't have a date yet, but I'm really looking forward to moving ahead. But right now, I really need to take a look at Department of Health projections on Friday. Many of the other superintendents in the county are doing the same thing, waiting to our meeting Friday to release public information on the 11th.
Would this be a full-time open or a hybrid?
I'm sorry?
Would it be a hybrid opening or is it
It would be a hybrid
It
opening.
is hybrid, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that combining cohorts based on, you know, the spread, I would not recommend that, no.
Is it a full day or a half day?
I'd rather not get into that right now.
Fair enough.
Okay, so you don't think that we should change the meeting to discuss it further? Then you just want to leave it?
That's up to the board. That's not up to me.
I'm comfortable with the current meeting schedule.
Me too.
Same.
Okay.
Anything else for open board member forum? I just want to take the opportunity again to thank members of our community for re-electing me to another term, and members of the board for another year as board president. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to working with you all next year. Okay, seeing nothing else for open board member forum, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second, Artis, second, Billy. All in favor?
Aye.